Sophia stepped out of her car with quiet determination. Her small sedan looked out of place beside the row of gleaming trucks and SUVs that lined the gravel parking lot of Timberwalk Shooting Club. She was neither well-connected nor wealthy. Her attire consisted of simple denim pants, a plain shirt, and worn sneakers that bore the scuffs of daily life. A large, faded duffel bag hung from her right shoulder, bumping gently against her hip with each measured step. In her left hand, she carried a long case covered in old stickers whose edges had begun curling long ago. She paused for a moment, her eyes scanning the imposing sign. She had saved for weeks to afford this day pass, lured by stories of pristine ranges and advanced training setups. A thread of anxiety coiled in her stomach as she noticed the stares from passers-by. She tried to push away the feeling that she didn't belong. After all, the website clearly stated that non-members with proper paperwork could sign up for a day's practice. She had double-checked her documents carefully. As she entered the club's spacious reception area, that sense of intimidation returned. Polished tile floors gleamed under bright LED lighting. Glass cases along the walls displayed custom rifles, each with a price tag that would have matched a month's rent. A few men and women dressed in sleek shooting attire, embroidered with sponsor logos, cast sidelong glances at her wrinkled t-shirt. Sophia approached the front desk where a middle-aged woman, in a crisp polo shirt, busied herself with the computer. "Yes, I registered online for the midday slot," Sophia said, presenting her day pass and ID, trying to smile politely. The woman barely looked up, scanning Sophia's documents with a perfunctory nod. After a moment, she typed something, then handed back the papers. "You'll need to head to Range 2, out that corridor. Show your pass to the range officer if asked," the woman instructed, pointing to a sign indicating where novices and casual shooters were directed. Sophia sensed the woman's dismissive tone. Perhaps she was used to dealing with amateurs. Still, it was better than outright hostility. She thanked the receptionist and followed the signs. On her way, she passed through a hallway decorated with framed photos of champion marksmen, each proudly holding trophies. Nearly all wore expensive gear. She couldn't help but wonder if any had started out like her. A nobody with a passion for shooting inherited from a grandfather who had taken her to a dusty, makeshift range back home. She remembered the gentle patience of that old man as he guided her stance, how he praised each small improvement until the skill began to shine. Now she was here, trying to keep that spirit alive in a place that seemed to revolve around status. When she stepped onto Range 2, she realized it was smaller than expected. Several lanes stretched forward, each separated by half walls. A handful of shooters stood in their lanes, adjusting rifles on rests or chatting about ballistics. In the corner, an instructor, tall, muscular, wearing tinted shooting glasses, led a conversation with two men outfitted in matching camouflage attire. Sophia set her duffel bag on a nearby bench, unzipped it, and pulled out the basic gear she owned: simple ear protection, safety glasses, and a small ammo box. Her heart pounded a bit faster when she noticed the stares. Perhaps they wondered why she hadn't invested in better accessories, or maybe it was just her own insecurity playing tricks on her. Either way, no one greeted her, and she received no offers of help. She unclasped the long case, revealing a humble bolt-action rifle that had seen better days. The wooden stock bore tiny scratches and scuffs, each telling a quiet story of practice sessions or simple wear. The barrel, though, was meticulously cared for. It shone with a slight oil sheen that testified to countless hours of cleaning. Sophia ran her hand over the stock, recalling how her grandfather used to remind her, "It's not about the rifle's glamour. It's about the steadiness of your hand and mind." She exhaled slowly, ignoring the faint snickers from 2 lanes over, where a pair of men fiddled with modern rifles bristling with tactical accessories. A range officer ambled over. His name tag said Bryce. He spared Sophia a quick glance, noting her older rifle with mild disdain. "New here?" he asked, though it was more a statement than a question. Sophia explained she was just here for the day, hoping to get some practice in. Bryce nodded, gave a perfunctory run-through of range rules, and then gestured that she could set up in lane 6. No welcome chat or friendly remarks, just a bored sense of duty. Sophia tried not to let it rattle her. She took her position in lane 6, carefully setting her rifle on the small table. She could see the digital target system beyond. It was set at 100 yards, a standard distance. Other shooters were engaged at various distances. She heard the consistent crack of gunfire from lane 2, followed by murmured discussions about ballistic coefficients and zeroing scopes. As she prepared to shoot, her eyes wandered to a conversation happening near the rear of the range. That tall instructor, the one with tinted glasses, seemed to be showing off an advanced AR platform rifle to a small cluster of admirers. That's Joel Manning. He's a semi-pro competitor, works as a club trainer too, she overheard. One man asked if they could watch him demonstrate. Joel smirked in response, stepping into an empty lane. His group followed, obviously enthralled. A hush fell as Joel loaded his magazine with a flourish, then fired a quick series of shots. The scoreboard overhead reflected near-perfect clustering. Applause rippled from the onlookers, who crowed about how easy Joel made it seem. Sophia realized she was stalling. With a sigh, she pulled out a basic soundbag rest, aligning her rifle. She double-checked the safety, ejected the bolt, loaded a single round, then slid the bolt forward. She wanted to start slowly, reacquainting herself with the environment. It had been months since she'd practiced on a well-maintained range. She inhaled deeply, exhaled halfway. Her father, who had inherited his father's love of shooting, always said, "Focus on the breath. Everything else fades." She positioned her cheek on the stock, let the crosshairs settle on the center of the target, and squeezed the trigger gently. The rifle kicked against her shoulder, the muzzle flashed visible through the scope for an instant, and an echo of the shot reverberated across the lane. She peered at the digital screen on her lane's console to see where the bullet had landed. A neat hole marked the 10 ring. She felt a wave of relief. At least the old rifle and her own skill hadn't gone rusty. She repeated the process for 5 more shots, each carefully placed. Her group measured about an inch at 100 yards, which she considered decent, though she knew she could tighten it if she settled her nerves. She remembered her grandfather's voice. One shot at a time, never rush. But before she could savor the small success, a loud exclamation erupted from the next lane. "That's some cheap scope you got there," one of the men joked, leaning over the divider. He was dressed in brand-name shooting apparel, the type that posted photos on social media with every session. "Trying to hit anything beyond spitting distance with that?" he chuckled. She forced a polite smile. "It works fine," she replied softly. He shrugged, smirking. She turned back to her lane, determined not to engage. She recognized that her gear was modest, but she refused to be ashamed. She reminded herself that gear alone did not define a marksman's ability. A few more shots later, she noticed new arrivals stepping onto the range. One of them, a tall woman with a confident stride, scanned the room. People greeted her with nods of respect. Sophia gathered that she was a known local competitor. She wore form-fitting pants and a performance jacket embroidered with sponsors. A sleek rifle case in her hand indicated something high-end. Several onlookers flocked to greet her. Sophia realized that the new arrival, named Cassidy, was apparently preparing for a major competition. Joel Manning, noticing her presence, ambled over to exchange banter with her. They joked about some upcoming match, discussing bullet choices. The dynamic was clear. Cassidy and Joel were part of the in-crowd, widely admired for their shooting prowess. Sophia tried to block out the noise, focusing on her own improvement. She continued firing in short strings, making minor scope adjustments. Each shot's echo reverberated in her ears. Despite her best efforts, though, she couldn't help feeling invisible. Nobody cared about her decent grouping on the scoreboard. They only had eyes for Joel or Cassidy. Each time Cassidy took a shot, a small crowd gathered, murmuring approval. She was hitting near-perfect scores at 200 yards, trying out a new bipod. Joel provided commentary, praising her technique. The entire range seemed magnetically drawn to them. Meanwhile, Sophia toiled alone at 100 yards, her achievements unnoticed, overshadowed by the local stars. During a lull, the men in the next lane struck up a conversation with Joel. They ribbed him about facing Cassidy in a future tournament. Joel feigned humility, though clearly enjoyed the attention. His eyes flicked occasionally to Sophia's lane, likely wondering who this quiet unknown was, but he dismissed her quickly, returning to banter with Cassidy. Sophia told herself it didn't matter. She was here to practice, not to impress. Yet part of her longed to show them that skill wasn't exclusive to those with brand-name gear and sponsor logos. She felt the memory of her father's encouragement wash over her, stirring an inner resolve. Eventually, an announcement crackled over the range speaker. "We're about to reset the targets for the afternoon challenge. Anyone interested, sign up at the main desk." Sophia perked up. A challenge? She recalled reading about a daily mini contest the club held. A simple event where shooters paid a small fee, then competed in a single-shot accuracy test. The winner received range credits or minor prizes. She had considered signing up, but upon seeing the skill level around her, she hesitated. Still, she wanted to push herself. As she mulled it over, Bryce, the range officer, approached the group near Cassidy and Joel, explaining the challenge details. Cassidy smirked confidently, saying she might do it for fun. Joel teased that he would join just to keep her honest. Their casual bravado stood out. The men in the next lane also declared they'd participate. Sophia swallowed her nerves. This might be a chance to see how her skills stacked up. She trudged back to the reception area, paid the small fee, and wrote her name on the list. She noticed a few sideways glances from the staff, as if to say, "You sure you want to do this?" She forced a smile and nodded. Returning to her lane, she took a seat on the small bench, running her fingertips over her rifle stock. Her heart pounded at the idea of stepping onto the line with those skilled, heavily sponsored shooters. She fought the urge to quit. She had come this far, had spent money on a day pass, and believed in her fundamentals. The worst that could happen was a missed shot, she told herself. She had nothing to prove, or maybe she did. She wanted to stand tall, show that her father's teachings meant something. When the hour for the challenge arrived, the range staff quickly reorganized the lanes. Targets were set at 150 yards for this single-shot accuracy test. Each participant would fire one round from a cold ball, with no sighters, aiming for a specialized target that had scoring rings from 1 to 10, plus an X at the center. Highest score won. Ties would go to the shooter with the shot closest to center. Joel and Cassidy swaggered to the assigned lanes, exchanging playful trash talk. A small crowd gathered behind them, eager to watch. The men from the next lane also lined up, adjusting their fancy rifles. Bryce called out names, directing participants to lanes. When he reached Sophia's name, he paused briefly, then directed her to lane 3, near the left end. She noticed the hush. People recognized Joel in lane 2, Cassidy in lane 4, so they crowded around them, ignoring Sophia's spot. Her presence hardly mattered, so no one blocked her vantage or asked about her gear. She tried not to feel slighted, reminding herself that their indifference gave her space to work without harassment. She took a few deep breaths, letting her mind clear. The range officer explained that participants would go in sequence, each firing when prompted. The scoreboard overhead would record each shot digitally. Sophia's plan was straightforward. Trust her zero. Trust her technique. Don't overthink. She loaded one round, heart-hammering. Cassidy went first, raising her custom rifle with an air of calm self-assurance. The shot cracked. The scoreboard flashed a 9. Very close to the X applause rippled. She nodded in satisfaction. Next was Joel. His shot boomed, and the scoreboard tallied a 9 as well, though slightly off to the right. More applause. He laughed, joking that he'd blamed the wind. The men from the next lane followed, each scoring in the high 8s or low 9s. Nothing lower than 8 so far, which spoke to their competence. Bryce called the next name, an older gentleman who fired a quick shot, scoring a 7. Then the staff announced, Sophia Jennings, lane 3. A faint hush settled. She sensed no real interest, just a collective patience as they waited for the next serious shooter. She exhaled, placed her rifle's butt firmly against her shoulder, and slid the bolt forward, feeling the weight of a single cartridge. Her scope was only 6x at maximum, but she'd tested that range earlier, verifying that her bullet drop was minimal at 150 yards. She inhaled slowly, recalled her father's voice telling her not to let nerves cloud her aim. The crosshairs settled on the X-ring. She felt her muscles relax, her breath pausing halfway. The trigger pull came smoothly, surprising her, just as her father had taught. She heard the muzzle blast, felt the recoil, smelled the faint tang of burnt powder. A heartbeat later, the scoreboard beeped. At first, the crowd seemed uncertain. Then the digital display registered a 10, with a tiny X next to it, indicating a near-perfect center shot. A ripple of surprise flickered through the watchers. Some turned to see who fired. Sophia blinked, barely believing it herself. She had aimed for center, but to achieve that precise X-ring on a cold ball was beyond her usual consistency. A hush fell, then a round of subdued applause. People craned their necks, eyeing lane 3. She heard a few murmurs. Who is she? Never seen her. Must be luck. Joel Manning frowned, glancing in her direction. Cassidy raised her brows. Sophia's pulse hammered in her ears. She lifted her head, exhaled shakily, and saw that the scoreboard had pinned her shot at 10x, slightly more accurate than the 9s from Joel and Cassidy. Another participant fired, scoring an 8. Then the final shooters took their turns, landing mostly 8s or 9s. None matched the 10x. The range officer, Bryce, finally stepped forward to announce that the highest score was a 10x from Sophia Jennings in lane 3. Applause erupted again, stronger this time, some out of genuine astonishment, others from courtesy. A staffer congratulated her. Joel and Cassidy exchanged looks. Sophia's cheeks burned. She had never been the center of attention in a range filled with skilled shooters. She felt a swirl of pride and embarrassment. She was sure some suspected it was sheer luck. Maybe it partially was, but she knew her fundamentals had guided that bullet. She hurriedly ejected the spent casing, placing it in her pocket as a keepsake. The crowd parted as Bryce motioned for her to come forward, awarding her a small trophy, a cheap plastic piece with a metal plate reading Timberwalk Daily Challenge winner. She stayed at it in disbelief, her heart still racing. People began gathering around, no longer ignoring her. Questions flew. What scope are you running? Did you use match-grade ammo? What's your background? She tried to answer politely, explaining she used a basic scope and standard 308 ammunition. Her background was mostly personal practice, taught by her grandfather, refined by years of quiet sessions on small public ranges. Some gaped at her modest approach. Joel Manning stepped up, arms folded, a skeptical look etched across his face. That's quite a shot, he commented, his tone neutral. Sophia nodded quietly, thanking him. Cassidy eyed the old bolt-action rifle and said, You sure that's not a custom job? The sarcasm was gentle, but it implied doubt that such a battered piece of hardware could perform so well. Sophia shook her head. Just careful maintenance and consistent practice, she replied softly. A few shooters tried to replicate her shot on the same target after the contest, though the official challenge had ended. Meanwhile, the staff urged her to take a photo with the miniature trophy. She felt awkward but complied. The men in matching shooting jerseys who had teased her scope earlier now looked sheepish. One of them mumbled, "Congratulations," apparently unsure how to handle the fact that her single shot surpassed his. Joel and Cassidy resumed their banter about upcoming competitions, but the tension in their voices suggested they were recalculating their assumptions. People soon returned to their lanes, but not without a few lingering glances at Sophia, who had gone from invisible to the day's surprise star. When she finally made her way back to lane 6, she felt shaky. Her phone buzzed with a message from an old friend, but she ignored it. She needed a moment to decompress. She stayed at the 10x reading on the scoreboard, which was now rotating through final results. She recalled how she'd been disregarded all morning, overshadowed by flamboyant shooters with better gear and reputations. Now, with a single shot, she had upended that hierarchy. She exhaled, letting the adrenaline subside. For a fleeting instant, she imagined her grandfather's proud grin. She gently ran a cloth over her rifle's metal, reflecting on how far she had come since she was a child struggling to keep her aim steady. A staffer approached, asking if she wanted to extend her lane rental. She nodded, deciding to capitalize on the momentum. She wasn't about to rest on one miraculous shot. She wanted to confirm her skill was real. She loaded up again, firing methodically at 100, then 200 yards. She noticed that while she remained consistent, she wasn't always landing perfect 10x. Some shots drifted to the 9-ring or 8-ring, especially as the range's overhead fans kicked up a mild breeze. That reassured her that the 10x had been a blend of skill and a dash of good fortune, but she felt satisfied that her fundamentals continued to yield decent results. Meanwhile, other participants periodically wandered over, curious about the quiet woman who had stolen the show. Some asked for tips or small talk. She answered humbly, explaining that she just followed tried and true basics: stable stance, breath control, smooth trigger pull. She noticed Joel passed by once, flicking a curious glance at her grouping. He said nothing but gave a curt nod, perhaps a silent acknowledgement of her competence. Cassidy, too, fired at a lane diagonally across from Sophia, occasionally casting sidelong looks. Sophia could sense Cassidy's curiosity, but they never spoke directly. As the day wore on, the range emptied out. The men from the next lane left early, complaining about their subpar results. Cassidy packed up her gear, heading off to some scheduled event. Joel locked up his fancy AR, telling a few hangers-on that he had to prepare for an advanced class. Sophia found herself nearly alone, save for a couple of novices who were finishing a beginner's course. She realized the environment felt calmer now, and she relished the solitude. She wanted to test her rifle at the far lane's 300-yard target, something she had already done in a controlled indoor-outdoor range. She asked Bryce if it was open, and he granted permission, setting the system to measure hits at that distance. She loaded her rifle, heart fluttering with excitement. This was well beyond what she had practiced regularly. She dialed her scope's elevation knob, mindful of bullet drop. She breathed slowly, recording the same technique that had landed her that 10x. The first shot fell just outside the ring's boundary. A 7. She grimaced, adjusted her aim, and tried again. A shot on the 8 ring. She kept making slight corrections, each attempt revealing how every yard beyond her comfort zone required more careful ballistic understanding. Still, she felt exhilarated when her final shot landed in the 9 ring. She let out a quiet laugh of satisfaction. She wasn't perfect, but she was growing. Near closing time, she started packing up. Bryce came by with a half smile. "Nice work today," he admitted. "Don't see many newcomers pop a perfect shot in the day challenge." Sophia thanked him, reluctant to mention that she was hardly new to shooting, just new to places like this. He walked away, leaving her with a faint sense of validation. She returned her gear to the duffel, then held the small trophy for a moment, marveling at how a cheap piece of plastic could symbolize such a significant personal victory. Outside, the sun cast long shadows across the lot. Her car was now one of the few left. She placed her rifle case in the trunk, stowing the trophy and ammo bag beside it. A warm breeze rustled her hair. She couldn't help but feel a surge of pride that her father and grandfather would have shared. Stepping into the driver's seat, she rested her head against the steering wheel for a moment, letting the day's events wash over her. She had come in as a nobody. She had been dismissed and overlooked. Yet her first shot had shocked everyone, revealing what lay beneath the unassuming exterior. The following days brought a swirl of minor buzz at the Timberwalk Shooting Club. Word spread among the staff and regulars about the simple woman with an old bolt action who landed a 10x. Some dismissed it as luck, but others pointed out that luck alone rarely manifested in so precise a shot. Joel Manning, known for analyzing potential threats to his local fame, made casual inquiries about her. Cassidy, busy traveling for a competition, reportedly just shrugged when asked. "Maybe I'll run into her sometime," Cassidy said in an interview snippet posted to the club's social media. It was overshadowed by her own tournament results though, which included a second-place finish in a regional match. Sophia, unaware of the chatter, returned to her normal life in a modest apartment on the city's outskirts. She worked a mundane clerical job, saving money whenever possible for more range time. The small trophy sat on a shelf near her living room window. She gazed at it occasionally, smiling at the memory. She had no illusions of grandeur. She simply wanted to keep practicing, keep growing. However, her sense of accomplishment lingered. She wanted to prove that the day's success wasn't a fluke. She researched local small-scale competitions, finding one to be held at the same club next month. She decided to sign up, figuring it would push her further. When she returned to Timberwalk a week later, she found a surprising shift in atmosphere. Bryce recognized her, greeting her with a nod. A few staffers offered polite smiles. One or two of the regulars approached, asking if she planned to enter the upcoming monthly shoot. She answered yes, feeling a bit uneasy at the new attention. Joel Manning spotted her from across the lounge, giving a curious once-over. This time, he actually walked over and struck up a conversation, though it was laced with mild condescension. "So, you're the 10x wonder, huh?" he teased. She chuckled politely, explaining it was just one shot. He nodded but pressed her about her background, seeming almost suspicious. She offered basic details, refusing to mention anything that might hype the moment. Joel shrugged, then said with a wry smile, "If you plan on competing, I guess we'll see if that shot was the real deal." She accepted his remark with a gracious nod, determined not to get drawn into ego battles. That day, she refined her consistency at 200 yards, pushing her limit. She discovered that she could maintain a decent cluster around the 8 or 9 ring, occasionally dipping or rising. Not quite the miraculous 10x, but respectable. She listened in on a few more advanced shooters discussing ballistic charts, gleaned a tip or two about wind doping. By the time she left, she felt more assured. Her name was now recognized, though not everyone was thrilled. Some whispered that she was just a flash in the pan, a random highlight that wouldn't repeat. Others extended cautious acceptance, intrigued by her skill. As the monthly shoot approached, tension built within Sophia. She even dreamed about the event, imagining a line of watchers scrutinizing her from behind. She reminded herself of her father's principle: shoot for yourself, not for them. On the day of the competition, she arrived early, scanning the sign-up list. Joel Manning's name was there. Cassidy's was not, having traveled for bigger contests. A mix of intermediate and advanced participants filled out the roster. The match format included multiple stations, short-range pistol, mid-range rifle, and a single long-range challenge. Sophia had only entered the rifle portion, as the club allowed partial entry for those who lacked a pistol or specialized gear. She felt a pang of envy for the well-equipped shooters who had every platform at their disposal. But she clutched her old rifle, heart set on doing her best. Bryce oversaw the mid-range portion, where each shooter had 3 attempts to score as high as possible at 200 yards. Standing behind her lane, Sophia felt the nerves spike. The participants included Joel and several of his acquaintances. Each took their turn, scoring anywhere from 25 to 28 points out of a possible 30. Good, solid marksmanship. When Sophia's lane opened, she placed her sandbag, loaded 1 round, exhaled, and fired. The scoreboard showed a 9. She repeated, getting another 9. The final shot landed at 10, giving her a total of 28, tying with Joel's earlier run. A whisper of excitement moved through onlookers. She breathed out relief, grateful that she hadn't choked. Next came a quick-fire scenario at 100 yards, 5 shots in 30 seconds. Speed had never been her forte. She managed a few 8s and 9s, finishing with a decent score, but not top tier. Joel excelled, demonstrating fast trigger pulls that placed him near or at the 9 ring. By the end of that station, he led Sophia by a couple of points. She refused to feel discouraged. She recognized that speed shooting was a learned skill, and her father had never focused on it. Finally, the competition ended with a single precision bonus, shot at 250 yards. Each shooter took their position, 1 bullet to earn extra points. Joel, going before Sophia, scored a near bullseye, a 10. Applause dotted the range. Then it was Sophia's turn. She recalled her earlier struggles at 300 yards, but told herself 250 was manageable with a slight scope adjustment. She steadied her breath, let the crosshairs align, and pressed the trigger. The scoreboard displayed a 9. Not perfect, but solid. She ended the day with a respectable final tally, placing among the top third of participants. Joel placed higher, finishing in the top 5. She was satisfied nonetheless. She had proven to herself that the earlier 10x wasn't a complete fluke. After the event, as shooters milled around, Joel approached her. His expression held neither smugness nor derision, more a guarded respect. "Not bad," he admitted. "You've got real fundamentals." She thanked him. He asked if she ever considered taking classes or upgrading her rifle. Sophia shook her head, saying that maybe she would when finances allowed. Joel offered a half smile, telling her she was welcome to join one of his advanced sessions. She recognized that might be beneficial, though she felt wary of stepping into his domain of pricey gear. Still, the invitation was progress, a hint that the local shooting star no longer ignored her. That evening, she drove home with a full heart. She hadn't won any grand prize, but she had stood her ground. The memory of that single day, the day she was ignored at the range until her first shot shocked everyone, remained vivid. It had opened doors, forging a path to deeper involvement in the shooting community. She placed her rifle back in its case at home, giving it a gentle pat. One shot had changed how people viewed her, yet she understood that a lifetime of practice lay behind that moment. It wasn't luck. It was dedication, perseverance, and the spirit of her father and grandfather guiding each breath. In the weeks that followed, she returned to Timberwalk regularly. Some recognized her immediately. A few asked if she'd join upcoming contests, and she found a small circle of acquaintances willing to train together. The old insecurities receded, replaced by a quiet confidence. She knew there would always be better shooters, more advanced techniques, and fancier gear, but none of that invalidated her abilities. She carried in her heart the certainty that skill could blossom anywhere, even in a simple woman with a battered bolt action, determined to make every shot count. And so her journey continued, forging new friendships, refining her marksmanship, and illuminating the subtle truth that sometimes being underestimated is the best advantage of all. The memory of that 10x lingered, not as a boastful trophy, but as a reminder that each pull of the trigger could surprise even the most experienced observer. Every day, she honored the legacy of the ones who taught her. Shoot with steadiness, humility, and faith. The results might just shock everyone watching.